First things first. Okay, let me just click OK for this recording. Yeah. First things first, it's a 2 hours workshop. So I would like you all to keep a glass of water or a bottle next to you so that you can keep yourself hydrated because, only when we are refreshed, the stories work. So yes, I hope you have your water bottles and glass of water ready next to you. Do keep a notebook and a pen with you just in case you want to jot down some quick ideas or, anything that can just spark and you want to write down. So keep a notebook with you. The fact that you all are here today shows that you have your thinking hats on and have already come in with an open mind to imagine and to participate. And so that's what I wanted to tell you for the beginning. And before we dive in, I would like to check in as to from where have all of you joined in today. And can we quickly drop in the chat the place from where you've joined in today? Like a quick, just one word where all of you have joined in from. You just quickly write in. I would like to see. Mm, I see somebody say I'm not audible. Am I audible? I can see some messages which
You
says
are, you are,
not able to
Shubha.
hear.
You are.
Okay, wonderful. Okay. Um, Shalini, for some reason, I can't see the chats. Are the chats coming in? Okay, I can see it now. I say Hyderabad, Kashmir, Punjab. Okay. Some more. Let me just quick. Okay, Bangalore, West Bengal, Ludhiana. Okay, there's an audio problem. I hope sorted. Coimbatore, Haryana, Udaipur, Salt Lake, Kashmir. Interesting. Bangalore. Okay, lovely. So I think we've Hisar. Okay, nice. So I think we have people coming in from all parts of the country, and that's wonderful because stories travel everywhere, sans boundaries, and so it's nice that teachers are coming in from everywhere to attend this workshop. So for the next 2 hours, what I would be doing with you is to share some practical ways of using storytelling in your classrooms with a gentle sprinkle of theory in between here and there. Yes. Um, and it's a training workshop on storytelling. So it goes without saying that I will obviously be sharing stories with you so that you get to experience what your students would experience in the class. Can I have a thumbs up if you all are ready for it? Okay, I'm assuming there is a thumbs up because for some reason my chat window is not showing up yet. But I take it as a yes because you all are here. All right, so to begin with, let's start with a story.
There are
And the
n
story for
number of
today,
thumbs ups here, Shubha, in case that's what you're
okay,
waiting for.
wonderful, wonderful. All right, so the story that I'm going to share with you all today is called The Secret in the Soup. Okay, so there was this little girl who had a sworn enemy, the carrots. She despised the carrots so much that no matter what her mother tried, or no matter how she tried cooking it, boiling it, steaming it, frying it, she just wouldn't eat it. Carrots are healthy for you, beta, the mother would say. And the little girl would, but they just taste like a medicine, she would say, and push the plate away. But one day, the mother had an idea. So she quickly went and boiled up the carrots and blended it into a smooth, silky paste. And she poured it into the pan. She added some herbs to it and she added a dollop of butter. And she kept the pan onto the stove and let it simmer well. Now, as the soup started to simmer, the aroma of the soup wafted through the room, all through the hall, and reached the little girl's nose. Ah, that is some aroma, the little girl thought. And she followed the aroma and she reached the kitchen. She reached the kitchen. She saw that there was this pan kept on the stove and she looked at it and there was this golden yellow color liquid that was simmering on the stove. Mama, what is this? What are you making? She asked. Oh, well, my dear, this is the sunshine soup for my little sunshine, she said. The girl patiently waited as the soup simmered. And then the mother took out a soup bowl and she poured in the soup into it and swirled some cream on top of it and added some pepper and some salt. And she gave it to her daughter. The little girl picked up a spoon and she spooned took a spoonful of the soup. Ah, it smelled good, she thought. Hmm. The soup, the taste of the soup just melted on her tongue. She loved the soup. So much so that it became a weekend ritual in their house, that every weekend they would have this sunshine soup for dinner. She had this for years together until she grew up into, an adult. And that's when she realized that the soup that she was slurping on all these years had nothing else but the very same carrots that she had despised. So you see, facts and information are like these carrots. Hard to chew, probably not suit does not suit everybody's taste. But then when you wrap them up in a lovely story and when you present it to them, then you will have takers who are ready to consume it and cherish it and probably sometimes even ask for second helpings. And by the way, that little girl was me. So you see, that is why we need stories to present information and facts to our little learners who would find themselves engaged in what we are teaching. So did you all like the story? Okay, I still, Shalini,
Uh,
I hear, am
yeah,
I not
Shubha,
audible?
a lot of people are saying that the volume is not, good enough. Do you think you can adjust the mic to be a little closer to you?
Is it better now?
Yes, it is. It is.
Okay. Did you all miss the story or did you all
No,
get to
now
hear the
again it's gone off. I think the mic needs to be really close to your mouth.
now?
Mhm. A little while ago, when you tested it, it was coming. Yeah, the volume is low. Shivali ma'am just confirmed it. Now it's completely gone. No, no, no. No volume at all. Do you think you can go on without the mic, Shubha? No, no, there's no volume. Shubha, if you have your phone next to you, join through the phone as well. The video can be on here, and the audio probably we can use the. Thank you, Priya ma'am, for confirming that you could hear clearly. Thank you, Nitin sir. Video is absolutely clear, Jagjit sir and Neha ma'am. Don't go by Oxford University's video. You need to be looking at Shubha's video. Let me know once you have joined Shubha so that I can, add you as a co-host.
Okay, I'm just logging in, Shalini.
Oh, no, Shubha, this is perfect. Your voice is pretty clear.
Clear?
Yes, yes, it is.
Oh, okay. All right. Then let me just log off this then.
Yeah.
As there's too much. There'll be
just
echo
just be a
and
little closer to the device, and I think we'll be able to manage.
just a little closer for me. Okay, so I'm assuming that you all have heard the story, the whole story. Have you all heard? Or do you all want me to go ahead with the story again? Or we'll just go ahead with the training?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes? Okay, awesome. Okay, so I was just telling you all as to how when the information and facts are wrapped up in, a story which is engaging, gets learners to assimilate it even more than rather giving them just plain information. That was the story that I was sharing with all of you. And with them, I welcome you to this session of storytelling for conceptual understanding. Now, give me a moment and I will just share my screen with all of you. Is it visible?
It's loading.
Okay. Is it visible now?
Not yet, Shubha, it's still loading.
All right.
Huh. It is there, Shubha. We can see it.
Okay, awesome. So welcome to all of you for this workshop of storytelling for conceptual understanding, where we are going to be talking about using stories to teach beyond the textbook. And so I also already shared with you the details that I wanted you to do first, which is, are you able to see? There's some issue. Shalini?
We are on the first slide of your presentation.
Okay, okay. Because it's not. Okay,
Yes, we are moving. The slides are moving.
great. All right, now that you heard the story, let's play a quick game. And Shalini, for some reason, I can't see the chat. So when they start writing in, I would request you to please read it out for
I'm
me.
I'm here. I'm here.
Okay, awesome. So this is a very, very simple game. It's called What If the Object Could Talk? Okay, and it's a very self-explanatory game. You see different objects here. There's a pencil, a teacup, a bell, spectacles, and a typewriter here. And what I want you all to do is take 2 minutes and think, what if these objects could talk? What is the story that they would probably tell us? Okay, you just need to write 2 lines. I will give you 2 minutes to think, and then you can start dropping in your stories in the chat box. If you want me to give an example, I would probably choose a spectacle and I would say, hey there, I was born to bring focus into this world. I sit all day on my human's nose and help them see what they long to see. Without me, their vision is blurred, but with me, it is all crystal clear. And yet, when they remove me, they smudge me on their shirt and they abandon me on the table or on the bed. While I give clarity, my life seems to be all a blur. That's just an example. I know it's way more than 2 lines. You don't have to write this many lines, but do take 2 minutes. Think of something. It does not have to be perfect. There is no rules to it. It just needs to have a story to it. And I have a timer here, and I'm going to turn this around, this is the timer for 2 minutes. And the end of 2 minutes, I will ask you to drop in your stories in the chat. All right, so here we go. One, two, and three. And your time starts now. You can start thinking. There is no pressure. Whatever comes to your mind, just think of yourself as that object and pen down the lines. Just get creative.
We get the first one in from Binita Muktan ma'am. She says,
Okay.
the pencil says, hey, 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 don't press and write. It's hurting. Come on.
Lovely.
Zarina ma'am says, hey, I'm pencil. Okay. Oh, now the chat is just running. Oh, where did we go? Where is yes. Zarina ma'am's I am pencil. I'm going to write, scribe, and draw. Navya ma'am says story on a bell. Hey, I am bell who rings all the time when the period ends and brings a smile on all face of kids. Priya ma'am
Nice.
says if a pencil can talk, Ouch, ouch, it's hurting, man. Can you write softly, please? Mahua ma'am says a single drop of water fell on the ground and the seed was happy. Nisha ma'am says, you know one thing, I am cup. All of them need me for drinking tea or for morning or and evening. Without me, they can't start the morning. Vijayalakshmi ma'am says, here I am to become fresh for you. I am a cup of tea. Anandita ma'am says, cup says, don't pour too hot coffee. Yeah. Um, Hello, I'm a pencil. I help children write and draw. Sometimes I become short, but I never stop working. I am happy because I'm making learning easy. Comes from Nagaveni ma'am. Sumana ma'am says, hey there, I was born to scribble on paper, but kids like me, and the whole day I'm going up and down on paper. Mamta ma'am, a cup of tea. Hey, I'm full of energy. Tam says, here I come, a cup of tea. Humans like me when they want to relish. Oh God, okay. Did we run away with that? Relax. I'm
Yes.
glad I can cool. And it just keeps coming. Oh my God, there's so many of them.
So that I think it's nice. I can see all the
Yes,
excitement in the
yes,
chat
yes.
room with so many stories pouring in, and we have run out of time for your stories. But don't you think this is such an interesting thing? I mean, you see, these simple objects can have so many stories. In 2 minutes, you could come up with so many things, right? Imagine what more can come up when you just give it a little more time and try and brew some stories around the different concepts that you all have for your learners. So from this game, we move on to our next section where I'm just going to take you to a little roadmap as to what is it that you are going to see in this session. All right, so what's in store for you? We will first go through why stories, as to why do we need stories and why are stories a part of our classroom. We will also go through types of stories. I mean, are there even types of stories, or is it just one kind of stories? Maybe just Panchatantra, or maybe just Aesop's fables. I mean, are these the only stories available? And then I will be taking you through the much needed toolkit, which would tell you whether you need to read a story or tell a story or do both, or I mean, anything that suits you. And then we will go through some simple read aloud techniques just in case you feel that reading is your forte. Then I'll give you these read aloud techniques which you could use in your classroom to bring your stories to life. And then, in case you choose to tell your stories, then I'm going to take you through the elements of a good story. And of course, this is a storytelling workshop. So, and I am a storyteller. So, how can I go without sharing more stories with you? So, there's going to be another live demonstration of a story, and we will break down the stories to see the various structure of the story that you can find in find in it, and the different themes that can come out of that story. And finally, it will be time for you to create. But I know we are on a webinar format, so this is going to be something that you will be taking home. And with that, let's get started. I assume, because I can't see your chat, I'm assuming that you're all with me on the same page. And here I go. Why stories? So now, why is it that we keep going in search of stories? Or rather, I should ask you, why do we keep going back to stories? I mean, think of this time, olden times, centuries ago. How did we even pass information about our history, about our civilization, about cultures and values, right? It was all passed down through stories, through oral storytelling. So, which means it is in our DNA to learn through stories. Now, you might just tell that, all right, I understand stories, it's interesting, but do you have, is it scientifically proven? Do you have, factors to prove that yes, storytelling is the way to teach and that is the way for children to get engaged in the class? Then yes, it has been scientifically proven that when you share a story, or rather when you share information or facts with your children or with anybody for that matter, there's just one part of the brain that gets activated because it's just assimilating the information that you have given. But when you're telling them in the form of a story, for example, when I shared the story of the soup, those of you who did not like carrot, I'm sure you connected with me and said, oh, even I don't like carrot. I'm sure you made that emotional connect with me. Now, those of you, some of you, when I tasted the soup, probably would have felt the taste of a soup in your mouth, maybe recollected a moment in your life, in your day to day. Maybe you had soup this afternoon or last night. You would have probably thought of that, right? So it has invoked your memory. Some of you, when I was talking about the aroma wafting through the air, could have probably smelt the soup. And you could imagine how the pan would look. You would have visualized how the kitchen would look. You would have visualized how the child would look. So it has, in a way, triggered all parts of your brain, whereas all your senses are engaged. And when you give your students or your learners an information that engages all parts of their brains and they begin to experience it rather than just listening to it, that's when the learning becomes complete, and which is what stories do for us. So they help in retaining memory. It is easy for them to recollect it. It stimulates the imagination, creativity, because if you're visualizing something that you're not seeing, then there is creativity there. You're imagining it there, right? And obviously, depending upon the vocabulary that you would use, it improves your language skills and your communication skills. And also it helps them. Students might want to connect with you and comment in between, saying, ma'am, you know what, I also had soup today. Ma'am, you know, even I don't like carrots today. Or maybe it could be something else that you don't like. But then you would have your learners joining in to tell you a connection from their life that help them relate to this particular story. So that's how it encourages participation, and that is exactly why we need to use stories in the classroom. Now, the next thing that we would go to is type of stories. So I'm going back to my previous screen because I would like to take you through the types of stories after I have shared a story with you. Now, before I do types of stories, I think more than telling you what are the types of stories we have, it would make more sense if I told a story and if you all just sat back, listen to it, and then we can take it from there. All right? So, it was a lovely spring morning, and Miss K was working in her vegetable garden. Now, this vegetable garden, she had a really big vegetable garden, and she had all kinds of vegetables. She had lady's finger, she had beans, potato, green chilies, tomatoes, bitter gourd, cauliflower, cabbage, spinach, carrots on one side. And on the other side, she had fruits. She had chiku, strawberries, there was a mango tree, there was a banana plant, and she also had some lovely colorful flowers. Now, she loved working in her garden. And every weekend, three children from the same village would join her to help her in the garden: Maya, Rachel, and Archie. Now, this was a weekend, and the children were at the garden all morning, helping her to weed the garden, to water the plants, to even harvest some ripe fruits. And that day happened to be a day where they got a lot of harvest of spinach and strawberries. Now, Miss K always ensured that she always gave them some treat for the help that they did in return. So that day she took all these strawberries and she thought, nice red strawberries. Probably I should bake them a nice little cake with a beautiful red, pinkish red glazing on it. And off she went into the kitchen while the children freshened up and they sat by the garden bench waiting for Miss K to bring in her treat. Miss K went into the kitchen. She boiled the strawberry. She blended it into a nice puree. She added sugar to it. She made a lovely glazing of it. And then she took a pan and she put some flour in it and she added some sweetener to it. She broke some eggs into it. She poured some milk and she whisked it well to form a nice cake batter. And then she poured it into the pan and she put it into the oven. Soon, in some time, the aroma of the cake wafted out of the oven, and she took out the cake. It looked perfect, perfect sponge cake, and it smelled so good like vanilla. And then she took the strawberry glazing and she poured it over this cake. And she took the cake out into the garden and she gave it to them. Now, the only one thing that Miss K always told them was no matter what you get, you need to share it fair. The moment the children saw the cake, their eyes lit up and they wanted to taste that yummy, spongy cake, the aroma of the vanilla and the color of the strawberry, the reddish pink strawberry. Ooh, it just looked so delicious. They just wanted to dig their teeth into it. And then Miss K said, here's your cake, my dear, but make sure you share fair. And off she went inside to get some milkshake for them. Now, the cake was kept on the table, and all the three of them sat down looking at the cake. It was a round cake, and they wondered how were they going to share this fare. So Maya, the youngest of them, she said, I have an idea. I exactly know how to share it. So she took out the knife and she went and she drew one line at this end of the circle and another line at the other end of the circle. And now there were three vertical pieces. She didn't cut it, she just traced the line on the cake. Now Rachel and Archie looked at the cake and they said, not happening. This is not even. This is not fair. We don't agree to you. I said, all right then, maybe if you know how to share it, why don't you go ahead and do it? And then Rachel took the knife and erased the line that Maya had drawn. And she drew another line from one edge of the cake to the center. And then a long line across the center of the cake. And she said, voila, there you go. I have shared the cake into three pieces. And Maya and Archie looked at the cake and they looked back at Rachel and said, do you think that's fair? Can you not see there's a piece that's so big there? We don't agree with you. All three of them sat there, wondering how are they going to share this cake. They wished that there were four of them so they could divide the circle into four parts and have an equal piece. Just then, Archie remembered, she recollected the logo that was there on her father's car. It was a circle with three lines that divided the circle into equal parts. She said, I have an idea. And she took up the knife and she erased the line that Rachel had drawn and she licked the strawberry glaze. And then she drew one line from one edge of the circle to the center. And then she drew a diagonal line to the other edge. And again from the center, she drew another diagonal line to the third edge. I mean, yeah, the circle doesn't have edge, but the boundary of the circle. And there, all three of them looked at the cake and they said, wow, now that is a fair share. And they were so happy to see how the cake was divided into three parts. And they cut the cake into those three parts and they said, well, it surely does look equal, but let's stack it and see if it is equal. And they took each piece and they stacked one over the other and they saw that all the three of it were equal. And just then Miss K walked in with their milkshake and they said, Miss K, look at this. We have shared it all fair. And she looked at the cake and she said, I am so proud of you all. And the little kids enjoyed their cake. But Maya and Rachel kept wondering, how did Archie come up with this idea? And just then they heard a honk. They looked away and they saw Archie's father coming to pick them up. And there on his car, they saw the logo of the circle with three lines. And they knew, aha, so that is where Archie got the idea of how to share the cake into three equal pieces. So that was the story of fair share. Now, can you quickly type in the chat box and tell me, what do you think this story can be used for? What is it that you can introduce through this story? Shalini, could you read it for me, please?
Sure. Fractions comes the first answer. Sharing. Sharing is caring. Fraction. Moral lesson. Sharing is caring. Fraction.
Okay.
These are the two.
Nice.
Math. Fraction. Observation. Measurement. Fractions. Sharing is caring. Helping. And lots of fraction. Math. Observation. Sharing.
Right.
Yeah. I think this
Pretty much the same.
ratio,
Okay.
measurement, all equal, dividing, sharing.
Right.
Organic food, critical thinking. Sharing
Interesting.
is important. We can learn from our surrounding, movement of care, coloring, application, pre-math concept, addition and subtraction, sharing, names of fruits, moral value, collaboration, communication.
Lovely.
Lots
Okay.
of ideas coming in.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So I see that a lot of you came up with the answer of fraction and ratios. And that's exactly what I wanted to do. So what I've done here is I used the story, as many of you suggested many more other concepts. Yes, the story can be used for so many other concepts, but I highlighted one portion of the story which spoke about fractions. And because of that, you all guessed the concept as fraction. Now, had I highlighted about the colors of the vegetables or the fruits, you would have probably told me that that was my concept. Or had I named the vegetables and fruits, you would have told me probably introducing vegetables and fruits were the concept of the story. So that's exactly what the story is, which is called the concept hook. So every time you want to introduce a certain concept, you can introduce it through a story like this. Now you can take a story which is already there and decide to zoom in on a certain detail. Like here, I decided to zoom in on how the cake was shared. And so it was used for a fraction concept. Similarly, like I mentioned earlier, if you zoom in on a different aspect, then that becomes your concept. So stories that are used to introduce a concept, these are called as concept hooks. So you have stories for every single math problem, multiplication, addition, subtraction, division. You have stories for it, n number of stories for it. You have stories for colors, objects, shapes. All of these concepts can be introduced through these stories, which are called as concept hooks. And that is what that is here, conceptual hooks. Now, the next kind of story is called the process story. And once again, before I tell you what a process story is, I will take you through yet another teeny weeny little story. Are you ready for a story? Charlie, I'm assuming they're giving you a thumbs up. You can just say yes. Are you all enjoying the
Yes,
story so
yes,
far? Yes?
yes, yes. Here
Okay,
comes the
awesome.
yes and the thumbs ups.
Lovely. Okay, awesome. So it was a hot, sunny summer afternoon, and little droplet Drippy was floating on the pond, on the little pond that was almost dry. She could feel the ground beneath her, and she was feeling very, very sad and very lonely because almost all her friends had already gone up into the sky. She just floated there, feeling sad and lonely. And just then, she heard somebody call out to her. Hey there, little Drippy, my dear. How are you doing? She looked around. She couldn't see anybody. Look up here, my dear. It's me, your son, Uncle Son. And Drippy looked up. And there was the sun, shining bright and nice. He said, What is the matter, dear? Why do you look so sad? Drippy said, I'm so sad. I'm so lonely. All my friends have gone up to the sky and I'm here all alone. I can feel the ground beneath me. It's so hard. I don't like it here. And Uncle Sun said, Oh, don't you worry. When I'm here, why do you have to worry about it? Just wait and watch. Abracadabra, shoo! And the little droppy evaporated into vapor and went high up into the sky. And she began to float in the sky in search of her friends. She saw so many clouds just floating by, but none of them had her friend. She floated and floated and floated up the sky until she found a big cloud in the shape of a boat. And there she saw in the far corner of the cloud was her friend Twinkie. She called her, Hey Twinkie, let me help. Take me also onto your boat. And Twinkie looked at Drippy and said, Drippy, come over, come over. But everybody else on that boat-like cloud said, No, 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 please don't step in. We are already full. We are heavy. One more and we might just topple and all go back to the ground. Twinkie, she was not ready to let Drippy be there all alone. So she held out her hand and Drippy caught onto her hand and Twinkie pulled her into the boat. And the moment Drippy got into that boat-like cloud, the cloud could no longer hold on and it toppled and whee, all the droplets fell back into the ground, filling that little pond. And little Drippy and Twinkie floated in the pond happily, enjoying their swim without feeling the ground beneath them. Now, I'm sure you would have understood what concept that I was talking about here, or what process that I was talking about here. Uh, I'm sure you would have. It is for water cycle, but this is just a basic story that I've used to express the process of water cycle. Now, depending on your age group, the learners, the vocabulary that they already know, you could use to probably expand the story, probably introduce more vocabulary to it, to make it more complicated, given more steps about evaporation and precipitation and all of that. But on a basic level, if you want to just introduce it as the first concept, then you can use the story. And I'm sure they're not going to forget the story and they will understand what happens briefly in a water cycle. And that is what we call as process stories. And these stories can be used to either talk to them about photosynthesis or digestive processes, or how seeds or plants grow. I mean, how seeds grow into plants. In fact, you could use the previous story that I shared with you to also talk to them about how plants are grown. I mean, if you were highlighting on the part where Mrs. K had sown the seeds and they watered the plants, and then there was sun shining, and then there was a little plant growing, that story would have probably you could have been used to introduce the concept of the growth of a plant and sowing seeds and stuff like that. So that was the second kind of stories that we have with us. Now, the third is a fix-it stories. Actually, there are more kinds of stories, but I thought these three predominantly cover most of the stories. We can categorize this into these three parts. There are witty tales, there are wisdom tales. There are many more tales, but predominantly most stories somewhere fit into any of these categories. Now, fix-it stories are used mostly for abstract concepts. You could introduce teamwork, you could introduce planning, you could introduce logical, critical thinking. If I had to give an example, probably some stories from Panchatantra, where the hunter and the dove, that it can be used for unity, it can be used for unity strength. Then the hare and the lion, it is about meticulous planning. You could also use the blue jackal, which is about identity. So when you have to use these abstract concepts, you can also use stories, and children wonderfully understand these concepts when you use these stories. And there's a whole lot of repository of stories out there, and I'm sure Oxford also has a lot of stories that you can use. You do not have to use the story the way it is. You can always tweak it and twist it and turn it and add in your bit of a story dust to it to make that story match the concept or the topic that you plan to introduce to your learners. I hope you're going well so far. Am I fast, or is the space okay? Can I get a thumbs up? Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are. You
Okay.
are, Shubha.
Okay, wonderful. And now we come to the storytelling toolkit. It's a very beautiful, magical toolkit that we have, because I'm sure you would say, we understood why we need to use stories. We have gone through the types of stories, but do we really have to tell them, or do we have any other option? So here it is. These are your options. You can obviously read it aloud, or you can tell it. Now, reading can be of two types. Let me just show you. Now, you could choose to read it this way. Next morning, Mo pulled Benji out of bed at 5 p.m., took him to the tracks. Benji grumbled, but with Mo helping, he began to try. They started with stretching exercises and ran around the track for an hour. They repeated the same routine every day. You could read it this way, but then you're not bringing anything to life when you read it this way. Or you could also read it. Next morning, Mo pulled Benji out of the bed at 5 p.m. and took him to the tracks. Benji grumbled, "Oh no, I don't want to go." But Mo, helping, he began to try. They started stretching exercise and they ran around the track for an hour. They repeated the same routine every single day. No sweets, No fried items till the race. More instructive. But there's clearly a distinction between two ways that I read. I'm sure you would have been able to differentiate the two ways in which I read the very same lines. The first one, you're just reading the words as is. But in the second one, you're adding life to the words with gestures and expressions. And that is what is known as participatory or interactive read aloud. So what happens in an interactive read aloud is that you are allowing the students, your learners, to be a part of the story and travel with you along with the story. So there is interaction. You're also letting them to think. You are also thinking aloud because you don't necessarily have to just read out the lines which is there in the book. When I do a demo of the read aloud, which I definitely will do for all of you, you will see how we do it, and then we can break down the steps that is involved in a reading aloud. And the next is oral storytelling, which I will take eventually. So this is what I was talking to you about interactive read aloud. Now I'm going to read out a story to you, and let's see how we are able to unlock the steps. All right, so are you all ready for a read aloud session with me, Shubha? Okay, get your ears open and your eyes open, and let's open the brain and throw away the lock. And the brains are open so we can assimilate all the information. And 1, 2, 3, ta-da! There comes the book. Wow, can you all see the book? Ah, lovely. What is it that we can see on this cover? I see a piglet, I see a hare, I see a monkey, a tortoise, and a squirrel. Hmm, what do you think they are doing? What is it that pose? Are they sitting for a meeting? Or are they sitting down for a feast? What is it that they're doing? Hmm, do you think they are sitting down, or probably they're taking position for a race? Could that be so? Hmm, I know there are a lot of, I can see a lot of their friends have joined in to cheer them. And it seems like a nice clear day because the skies seem clear. So are you ready to see what's the name of the story? Let's figure out if they are actually getting ready for a race or something else. And 1, 2, 3. Here you go. So the story is Benji runs a race. Who do you think is Benji here? Hmm. Well, I think it's probably the tortoise. You think the tortoise is Benji? Let's figure out. The story is written by Priyanka. She's the author of the story, and Suzanne is the illustrator of the story. All right, and here starts the story. Oh, wow, they indeed are running a race. I'm assuming that you all can see the illustrations. See, there is a hare, and he's reached the finish line, and there is monkey, and looks like this one is Benji. Let's find out. Mo the rabbit came out of the turn like a speeding bullet, while Benji the monkey not far behind. And the winner without a doubt is Mo, said the announcer. The crowd cheered loudly, running towards Mo. Benji crossed the finish line with a sad look on his face. Can you see? Can you see Benji? Looking so sad. Oh, and who are they? I see an elephant and an octopus here. Let's find out who they are. That was a good race, Mo, told Benji, giving his hand. But Benji just walked away to his friends, Flinto the octopus and Bobo the elephant. So now we know Bobo was the elephant and Flinto was the octopus. I am going to win the final race. Just wait and watch, he told them. Next morning, as Flinto passed Benji's house, he noticed that Benji was still asleep. Hmm, shouldn't he be training now? Thought Bobo. That evening, when Bobo went out for a walk, he saw that Benji was still playing with his friends. Benji, why are you not training? Don't you have the race? He asked. Benji went closer to Bobo and said, I have a secret. I know of a secret. What do you mean? Bobo asked. I found out Ben's more secret, said Benji excitedly. Oh my God, look at his excitement. What could the secret be? Do you all know what the secret could be? Is he probably gonna, maybe he has some health drink that gives him this energy to always finish first? Or probably he has some wheels under his foot? Let's find out what's the secret. He wears a pair of shoes that helps him run faster. I have taken it and hidden them. Benji, you can't do that. That's cheating, cried Mia. It's unfair that he has those shoes. I don't have those shoes. Well, if you win by cheating, it's not true win. You will not feel good, said Bobo. You have to give it back to Mo, said Flinto. Can you see the friends? There's Bobo and Benji and Flinto. Oh, and there's a little boy here. Nice conversations. Let's find out. Do you think Benji is going to return more shoes? Do you think Benji should return more shoes? Or should he just keep it with himself? After all, he can also win the race, isn't it? Or probably not give Mo the shoes and then both of them are on equal grounds and they play the race. It's fair enough, isn't it? Now, Mo has an advantage. Why should Benji not have? Let's see what Benji plans. Ah, Benji went to Mo's house with his friend supper. I'm sorry, Mo. I shouldn't have tried to cheat, said Benji. It's all right, buddy. It's okay. And just so you know, it's not the shoes that help me win, it's the training. Training? Do you train every day? Asked Benji. Mo said, of course. What do you think? Without training, I am not going to be first. Do you want to train with me? Asked Mo. And Benji was super excited to train with Mo. So next morning, Mo pulled Benji out of the bed at 5 a.m. and took him to the tracks. Benji grumbled, oh, I don't want to wake up this early. But with Mo helping, he began to try. They started with stretching. They stretched right, they stretched left, they turned around their neck, they jumped and jogged a little. And they repeated the same routine every day, day after day. No sweets, no fried items. Till the race, said Mo. The day of the final race arrived. The entire town of Jollyville showed up for the race. Can you see here? All this that you see in this dark brown color, that's the entire town of Jollyville. All of the runners were in position. Can you see the position? They were all in their position, all the runners. There's Mo and there's Benji and the tortoise and the squirrel. And clap went the siren and the race was on. Mo shot up at the sound of the clap and Benji close behind him. Mo ran ahead and Benji ran behind him. And Mo ran ahead and Benji ran behind him. Mo first, Benji second. Mo first, Benji second. Then Benji first, Mo second. And they went, head to toe together. They just kept running. And finally, Mo just went a step ahead and thud. He tripped and fell on his face. Oh no, thought Benji. He ran ahead to Mo and extended his hand. And Mo caught Benji's hand and he stood up. And Benji said, come on, Mo, you can't give up now. Let's finish the race. And once again, Mo and Benji began running as fast as they could. Mo ran ahead and Benji followed. Mo ran ahead and Benji followed. And sometimes both of them ran together and sometimes Benji ran ahead and Mo followed. And they kept running and running and running and running. And voila! Mo finished the race and crossed the finishing line with Benji just in tow with him. The crowd erupted into cheers, and this time Benji was the first one to join in. Benji, are you not sad that you lost? Asked Flinto. I thought you wanted to win this race badly. I did, but Mo taught me something even better. It doesn't matter if you win or not, it's the journey and the friends that you make in your journey, said Benji, giving Mo a high five. That was the story of Benji runs a race. Now tell me, did the story remind you of your friends who have helped you in times when you really needed it? Or did it remind you of times when you wanted to do something naughty because you were frustrated that you were not getting something? Did it remind you of some of your friends? Do you think it was okay for Benji to take away more shoes? Or was it okay? Not okay. Do you think he should not have returned it? Should he kept it for himself? What do you think? That was the read aloud for you, which I demonstrated. Just the way that you could do in your class. Because when you do this, while I did ask these questions, and I'm sure since we do not have an interactive webinar here other than the chat, but ideally, when you pose these questions, the children tend to answer, and that's how it becomes interactive. So if you see the first step, I introduced the book. I showed you the book. I had the title covered so that it triggers creativity in children. They look at the picture and probably try to analyze what the story could be about. They see that they're all sitting in a raised position. So maybe the story's got something to do with race. I mean, that is how the thinking is triggered in the learners. And it sparks curiosity in them. And then I took you through what I could see there, who's the author, who's the illustrator, and then I began to read the lines. And some of the lines are not in the books. It's just something that I added on my own, which you could also do because it is just a very natural thing to add your own lines. You're adding your own thoughts to it. Some questions that came to my mind, it need not necessarily be in the book, but you can add those questions and those thoughts to just make the story more lively and more engaging for your students. Again, the vocabulary, just I said, the oral telling, you can choose to use different words than what is there in the book, depending on the level of your learners. If you want to use more difficult vocabulary or a simpler vocabulary, you could choose to do so. In between, you can pause for your discussion, like I had paused asking, was it right to for Benji to have taken more shoes, and that discussion that was there between the friends. So when you pause in the story, I mean, yes, I did read the story at a stretch, but you can stop, take a pause. You could probably stop the story midway on one day and then have the discussion about it and then continue the next day from where you stopped by again carrying forward a bit of the discussion from the previous day. So there is no rule about how long you should pause, but a pause is always good as long as it is leading to some constructive discussion and students are able to recollect what you have read in the previous class. And once the story is done, you wrap up for reflection. Like some of the questions that I asked you in the end was for reflection. I just asked them one after the other, but in a classroom scenario, you can ask one question and then that can lead to discussion. It is interesting, and I'm sure you all, as teachers, do have live examples of how these discussions can bring about some of the best responses from your students. And that's exactly what we intend to do by using these stories. And those are your steps for a read aloud. Now, moving on from read aloud, I would like to take you to what do you think could be the next one? You didn't have much of a time to think because I just moved the screen. Oh, okay. So now, just in case you feel that, read aloud stories, well, okay, it's already there. Where is my creativity in there? And you want to write a story of your own. You want to write in something, or you want to develop something of an already existing story, which is called as adapting a story, which you could also do. Then you are doing an oral storytelling. So everything that is there in the read aloud is very much there in the oral storytelling. Only thing is you're not using the book. You will use your gestures, you will use your expressions, you'll use your actions, you will use the area around you. You could choose to use any object as your prop. If there's a cupboard, you can even use it as a tree and say you're climbing the tree. So basically, you're using the area around you to tell a story. You're creating that particular setting in the place that you already are standing or sitting for that matter. And that is what is known as oral storytelling. Now, if I have to explain the structure of the story to you, it's better if I tell you another story. Do you think we're having too many stories? Is it boring for you to listen to stories? Are we having too many stories? Yes, no? You can quickly write in on the chats. I would like to see if I'm giving you all too many stories. Shalini, what's the uh, temperament in the chat box? Is it a yes or a no? Are the stories too many? Okay, I think there's a lag, or probably Shalini is not around, but I wish I could see the chats. Let me try once. Hmm, interesting. Okay, another story, please. Okay, awesome. Okay, I see. Oh, wow, I see so many chats now. Interesting, interesting. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so I'm assuming that you all want more stories. Great. And what more does a storyteller want when people ask for more stories? I'm glad you all are having fun and you're not regretting having joined the session. And I'm having absolute fun telling you all stories. Okay, so now let's go on to the elements of a story. And for this, I am going to tell you all a story. And once I tell the story and then I take you through the structure of it, it is all going to make sense. I'm just going to put two and two together. You know, it's putting in facts with a story and then you get to see the whole structure. Math related story. I already shared one math related story with you on the fractions. Okay. Okay. Moving on. So this is a story that I'm going to share with you all. It's called a Pokwa tale. Um, most of Pokwa tales come from Africa, or at least this one that I have for you comes from Africa. And I somehow love these African Pokwa tales. These are like these tell me why tales. Okay, it's the why tales. I have taken the story and I have adapted it in a manner so that I can clearly show the structure of the story and also how it can be made engaging for the audience. So it's just the main bit is from the story. The rest is all developed and adapted by me. So the story goes this way. A long time ago in a big jungle, there were big tall trees and short ones too. There were monkeys and lions, but no kangaroos. And there lived a herd of elephants too. Dum dum digga digga dum dum dum. Dum dum digga digga dum dum dum. Dum dum digga digga dum dum dum. And there lived a herd of elephants too. Now, this story comes to you from a time when the elephants had teeny weeny nose, not like the trunks or the long trunks that we see these days. So, in this herd of elephants was a little baby elephant, Boo Boo. Now, Boo Boo was a very curious elephant. She always had some question or the other to ask. Every morning she would wake up and jump out of her bed, and instantly there would be a question that pops in her mind. So, this one morning, as the sun shone bright up in the sky into her room, Boo Boo woke up. Oh, and she stretched herself and she jumped out of the bed, and voila, there was a question waiting for her. So she flapped her ears and she wiggled her teeny weeny nose and he shook her bum and she walked into the kitchen where her mother was cooking. Good morning, Mama, said Boo Boo. Her mother was cooking, turned around and said, Oh, my dear, what a pleasant surprise. You've woken up early today. So, what would you like to have for breakfast? Boo Boo looked at her and she said, Not breakfast, Mama. Dinner. I want to know about dinner. Her mother was puzzled. Dinner? It's too early for dinner, my dear. Oh, Mama, I'm not talking about my dinner. I'm talking about the crocodile's dinner. I want to know what the crocodile eats for dinner. Hmm. Her mother was puzzled. She said, "Oh my God, yet another question. How am I going to find an answer to this?" And so she looked at Boo Boo and said, "My dear Boo Boo, I'm busy cooking and I need to get this food ready soon before your father is back. Why don't you go and ask him? You'll find him grazing in the jungles." Boo said, "Okay, Mama." And so she flapped her ears and she wiggled her teeny weeny nose and she shook her bum and she walked into the jungle. She walked and she walked and she swayed and she walked and she walked and she walked and she swayed and she walked. And there, at a distance, she saw her father grazing on the bushes. He picked little leaves from the bushes around and he was eating. So Boo Boo went up to him and said, "Good morning, Dada." And her father looked at her and said, "Oh, good morning, my dear. How lovely to see you here today. Looks like you're out on a morning walk today." And Boo Boo said, "No, Dada, not on a morning walk. I want to know about the night." "Night? What about the night is that you want to know, my dear?" Father asked. Boo Boo said, "Dada, I want to know what is it that crocodile eats before he says good night." And her father was puzzled. He's like, "Oh no, this kid, she's back with yet another question. Who is going to help me find this answer?" He wondered. And he said, "Well, my dear, um, I'm afraid if I have an answer to this question, but I am sure that Uncle Tortoise, who's there by the bank of the little pond, will be able to give you an answer." And so Boo Boo said, "Okay, Dada." And she flapped her ears and she wiggled her teeny weeny nose and she shook her bum and she walked. She walked and she walked and she swayed and she walked and she walked and she walked and she swayed. She kept walking and walking and walking and walking until she reached the banks of this little pond. And there, by the banks of the pond, next to a huge rock, was Uncle Tortoise. He was sitting there, fast asleep. Who went close to him and he said, "Uncle Tortoise, good morning." And Uncle Tortoise woke up, looked. "Who is it? Who is it?" He looked around. And Boo Boo said, "Uncle Tortoise, it's me, Boo Boo. I want to know what does crocodile eat in the night?" Tortoise said, "Oh, yeah, night. I know. I didn't have a good night's sleep." And he fell back to sleep. And Uncle Tortoise fell back asleep. Now Boo Boo didn't know where to go, whom to ask, but she really wanted to know the answer to her question. And she began once again. She flapped her ears and she wiggled her nose and she shook her bum and she began to walk and walk and she walked. She swayed and she walked and she walked and she walked and she swayed and she walked and she walked. She walked and she swayed, but she didn't know where to go ahead. And just then she had heard somebody call out to her. "Shh, shh." She looked around. There was nobody there. And and then there's a sound that came. "Here, look up, it's me, look up." And she looked up. There was a little birdie perched on the tree. And she quickly flew down, sat on Boo Boo's neck, and said, "I know who can give you the answer to your question." Boo Boo was excited. She said, "Really? Do you know who can help me?" And then the little birdie was. And just then, Boo Boo was so excited. She said, "Thank you so much." And then she flapped her ears and she wiggled her nose and she shook her bum and she started to walk and she walked and she walked and she swayed and she walked and she walked and she walked and she swayed. She walked and she walked and she walked and she swayed until she reached a river. And by the banks of the river was this long green thing that was lying down there. What do you think it was? Well, all those of you who guessed it was a crocodile, you're right. It was a crocodile who was sleeping there. So Boo Boo was all excited. She's like, "Crocodile! I will ask him what he eats for dinner." And she went closer to him and said, "Uncle Crocodile, I want to know what you eat for dinner." Slowly opened and said, "What? I can't hear you, my dear. Could you come closer?" And Boo Boo went closer, and she asked the same question again. And Uncle Crocodile said, "I still can't hear you, my dear." And Boo Boo went even more closer. And Uncle Crocodile once again said, "I'm hard of hearing. Please come closer." And Boo Boo bent further closer, and even before she could ask, right, snapped and caught onto Boo Boo's neck, screamed, and she began to pull herself back. And the crocodile pulled, and Boo Boo pulled, and crocodile pulled, and Boo Boo pulled, and crocodile pulled, and they pulled, and they pulled, and they pulled, and they pulled. And as they kept pulling, the nose kept getting longer and longer and longer and longer and longer. And Boo Boo tried with all her might, and she pulled, and she pulled, and Boo fell on the ground. Her nose hurt like crazy. It was like 1,000 needles pricking her nose. "Ah, Mama, it's hurting." She coughed and she cried. Just then, a little fly came and sat on Boo Boo's head. And even before Boo Boo could realize, she lifted her tongue and slapped. She hit the fly. And then she was surprised. "Oh my God, how did I do that?" She wondered. And she could hear her tummy growl. And even before she could think what she could do, she lifted her trunk up to the branches and she plucked the leaves and she ate. She said, "This is wonderful," she thought. And she looked at her nose. Her nose had grown long, and she said, "Oh my God, my nose," which we call trunk these days, "is so long. I have to go and tell Mama about it." And then she got up and she swapped, flapped her ears. And this time she didn't wiggle her trunk, she swayed her trunk and she shook her bum and she walked and she walked and she swayed and she walked and she walked and she walked and she swayed and she walked. She walked and she walked and she swayed and she walked until she reached home. Now her mother, surprised and shocked all at once, looking at her, and she said, "Oh my God, Boo Boo, what is this? What happened to your nose?" And Boo Boo told her the entire story of what happened, and she also told them about what is it that she could do with her long trunk. And from that day on, every single day, one elephant would go in search of the same crocodile and go and ask it the same question. And the crocodile would snap, and the elephant would pull, and they would pull, and they pull, and they pull. And every single day, an elephant got a long trunk. And that is how, my dear, the elephants today have a long trunk. And that was a story of how do elephants have a long trunk. I hope you all enjoyed this story. As I said, this is a Pokwa tale where the main tale is taken from one of the folk tales of Africa, but then I adapted it. I added song to it. I added actions to it. I added a rhythm to it. It was a participatory story. So when I do it with children, I have children sing with me. So there is a lot of engagement that happens here. You don't have to do this in the classroom all the time. But yes, you could use one of these elements in your stories, because when there is repetition, when there is music, when there is rhythm, then the retention is always better. And if you can obviously modulate voices, then the children are able to differentiate clearly the characters in the story. And that takes me to the elements of the story. So if I have to take you through what is written on our slide here, the story needs to have a structure. There needs to be a framework. Anything for that matter, an object, everything needs to have a framework. We need to know where we begin, what's the middle of the story, what's the end of the story. The beginning of the story was probably me talking to you about the jungle and about the herd of the elephants, and telling you, um, about this curious little elephant. The middle was all that happened during the story, was the middle of the story. And the end is where she goes and gets a long trunk, and how all the other elephants get a long trunk. Now, that's the structure of the story. Now, when I took the story and I thought as to what, when the story came, it was just about one elephant going in search of this question and getting an answer. But when I thought of developing the story, then I thought, what should be my theme? I wanted this theme to be about curiosity. And so I added the curious elephant. I gave it that particular character being a curious elephant. How I wanted to set it, I set it in a jungle. And when does it happen? It happens on a nice, bright summer, sunny morning. And then eventually the plot progresses as the story unfolds. Like the elephant moves from the mother to the father to the tortoise. And with each time, the anticipation is building, and that's how the story is unfolding. So that is your theme, your setting, and your plot. And from there, I introduce characters. Now there is Elephant's mother, there's Boo Boo's mother, her father, the Uncle Tortoise, there's this little birdie on the tree, and then there is the crocodile. And those are the characters, and each of it had, I tried to bring out the characters in them through voice modulation. Yes, it's a cliche to say mother was in the kitchen, but I just added because that was just easier to uh, just add. But yes, you could choose not to add it that way and choose the mother was doing something else. Again, that's your choice, what you want your character to do in the story. It can always be changed to suit your audience. Those things can always be changed. And also point of view. Now here, the point of view, the story was told from a narrator's point of view. Now you have a narrator's point of view and you have a first person point of view. The first person point of view was, if I narrated the story as Boo Boo myself, then it becomes the first person point of view. If I narrated the story as her mother or as her father, then it becomes a second person point of view. But I narrated it as a narrator, where I'm standing out and I'm looking at the story. So that becomes a narrator's point of view. So you can always choose to tell your story in whose point of view, and based on that, the the message that you're trying to get through, or the topic that you're trying to convey to your learners, can change. For example, if you tell the Cinderella story, I mean, yes, it's a fairy tale, but if you tell it from Cinderella's point of view, it has a different take. But if you tell it from the stepmother's point of view, it's a different take. If you tell it from the pumpkin's point of view, with it turned into a chariot, then there's a completely different take. So each time you change the point of view, the perspective of the story changes, and so does what the story conveys changes. And then, most importantly, the conflict, because that is where the story is speaking. You need to build the story to a point that your audiences are engaged and they have this curiosity to know what is going to happen next. You want to keep them thinking and on their toes and on the edge. Oh my God, what is going to happen next? What's going to happen next? Because as you saw in this story, when the mother said no, I'm sure you all thought, okay, now what is she going to do? And the father said no. And you thought, oh, okay, maybe the tortoise is going to answer. But the tortoise said no. So now what? And that is how I'm building in anticipation in the story. And the conflict happens when the crocodile actually snaps at Boo Boo's nose. And how is she going to resolve that conflict? And that is where the peak of the story is. So every story needs to have a peak. So it's like, you have a bell. The story needs to climb up the mountain first, reach the peak, and then slowly come down. So after the trunk grew long, I spoke about how she was excited to swap the fly. She was excited that she could pluck the leaves from the branch high up. She wanted to tell her parents. She walked back, and how every elephant came back to get their trunk long. All those was the fall from the mountain. it's a downhill. So there's an uphill and there's a downhill. And that's how every story will function. Sometimes you can have a cliffhanger where you just go to the peak and you leave it. But most often than not, such stories can be used for critical thinking, where you want them to think about what are the possibilities. But for concepts, those stories don't work. You can usually use a cliffhanger when for abstract topics, when you want to introduce more of discussions, group discussions, and creative thinking, and lateral thinking, and perspective thinking. You can use cliffhanger stories. So that is predominantly how the structure of the story is. I hope we are clear so far. I don't think it is rocket science. I'm sure all of you must be already be using stories in your classrooms. Probably this would have helped you maybe add in some more elements to the way you're doing it. But I'm sure you would have some takeaways different from what you have been doing all these while. And some of you might just find it new and nice and interesting to introduce in your classroom. And that takes us, so yes, we have done the pieces. I have discussed the structure with you. This particular story can be used for different concepts. It could be about, parts of body for the elephant. It could be about what the crocodile eats. It could be about the jungle, the things that you see in the jungle. You can elaborate it at any point of time. You can zoom in on any particular aspect to introduce certain themes in the story. But for me, predominantly here, I wanted to introduce rhythm and rhyme and the fact that how did the elephants get a long trunk? And that is how this whole story was designed. So you always need to have an idea as to what is a concept that you want to talk about, and then you take a story and then you further develop it from there. And that takes us to the next slide, which is your takeaway task. Now that you know why we go to stories, you know what are the different types of stories that we have. I did share some stories with you. I'm sure you can write some for yourself, or you will find stories in your library or by Oxford Books. You would find a whole lot of stories around you. It can be simple stories. You all wrote stories about those little objects, and similarly, you can write many more stories. But when you add in all the elements that a story needs to have, it definitely can become engaging. So, up 1 second. Yes. So the task that I have for you all is you need to pick a strong idea. My slide is acting a little funny. Please bear with me. You need to pick a strong idea or a message or the topic or the concept that you want to convey to your students. And then you either take an already existing story and make the tweaks to fit in your chosen theme, or you write a fresh story. And obviously, I will not be able to read, I will not be able to listen to it, but you can always share it with the Oxford team or your point of contacts who are in touch with you for these trainings, and you can share it with them and get your feedbacks for the same. But because, the thing about learning storytelling is by doing it. You have to do it to learn it and to experience it, because only when you do it, you will know what are the things that you need to improvise for yourself. Now, there are stories, one story, like, for example, I love this example, The Thirsty Crow. It's such a simple story, but that story can be used to talk about season. It can be used to talk about, critical thinking. It can be used to talk about mathematical concepts. So that's one very versatile story that you could use to discuss so many different concepts. And such is the case with so many other stories. We have a huge repository of stories around us. So do go dig in, use your magnifying glass, look at each story to see as to what is it that you can magnify and how you could present your topics and concepts to your students to make your classrooms more engaging. And so that is where we come to the end of this training. And I hope you'll have had a great evening and enjoy listening to the stories, just like I have enjoyed sharing these stories with all of you. And I hope you use these stories in the classrooms and have fun along with your students as well. If you have any questions, you can ask, and you know, I can try and answer whatever is possible here. You can type in your questions in the chat if you have any. Let me open my chat box to see if I'm able to look at your chats.
Teachers, I request you to, stay on in the session. I'll share the feedback with you. Please do not log out. If there are any questions, Shubha would be happy to answer them. Okay, there was a big
Yeah, I
chat.
can
Let
see a
me just.
question from Zeenat
Yes, I
Khan.
think there was a big chat. I'll just see if.
Yeah, I can see that question from
Ah,
Zeenat.
oh, you can see it. Let me read that
Her
out to
question
you.
is, yeah, I can read it, no problem.
Yes, okay.
Okay, so she's asked, your story is very good and your expressions are really awesome. Thank you so much. But ma'am, here is my question. The way you are telling, for this, we have to learn the story first, because without learning, it will be little bit difficult to tell um, with full expressions. As a teacher, there are so many stories, and especially as a mother teacher, it'll be hard to learn all stories. What can we do in this case? You have your toolkit, the toolkit that I gave you. You can read a story or tell a story. So if you cannot learn the story, you can always read a story. Even if you work on the story and you have tweaked it, you have adapted it, you have written it, you can read it from what you have written. But make sure you read it in a way that you're bringing in life to your words. So you don't necessarily have to learn your story. I understand, because as teachers, you have so many other things to do. But yes, reading is always an option. So don't worry. I hope I answered that question for you, Zina, ma'am. Um, okay. Let's see any other question. Very interesting. Thank you all. Thank you all. I'm glad that you found it interesting. Shali, I don't see any questions. Am I missing on any?
No, neither do I. I'm just going through the chat to check if there are any other questions. I don't see any. All right. So I think we can wind up, Shubha.
All right.
Any last notes?
Just go ahead and try, and just try. You can never go wrong with stories. What you do is what is there. So just enjoy the process and have fun using stories in your classroom, and good luck. Thank you all so much for coming in on this Saturday and sitting through with these 2 hours. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Shalvi, for having me here to conduct this workshop for all your teachers.
It was really really nice having you here, Shubha. Although we did face some very serious technical glitches, so much so that once we had to shift and reschedule the webinar, and this time we had to shift from one platform to the other. But I really really appreciate you as well as all my dear teachers for very patiently moving from one platform to the other, and I'm sure they found all that trouble worth the while, because it was such a lively session, and as Zeenat ma'am very correctly pointed out, there's so much of expression that comes in. Zeenat ma'am had a very valid point when she said that the expressions come to you when you have learned the story. But at the same time, Zeenat ma'am, I myself try to bring in some element of drama whenever there is a narration that's happening. And even if you're reading it out, if you have read the story out once or twice to yourself, you don't really have to learn it by heart, or you don't have to rote learn it. You can still read the story and bring in all the expressions that you can, even if you're not just saying it out loud, you're reading it from a book, you still can do it. That's exactly what Shubha mentioned. So all the best with that. I'm sure Shivali ma'am, I think this is the idea that many of them have. They all would love to attend more of Shubha's session. So thanks a lot for being here. I'm
Thank you.
I'm sharing the feedback link in the chat. Please remember that this is not Big Marker platform, the platform on which we generally conduct the session. So you will not receive your certificate just like that. We will be arranging internally. We have to figure out how to get the certificates to you. So we will get in touch with you through the academic excellence managers, and we'll make sure that all of you who have attended the session receive the certificate, right? Once again, I apologize for the glitch that we faced, and I really hope that we are able to fix it soon, right? So here you go. In the chat, you can find the feedback link.
Charlie, one second. I see Akash Deep ma'am has raised her hand.
Okay, let me check that. Akashdeep, ma'am, there's Bhanu. Bhanu is Sapni Bhanu, I guess. Okay, let me see if I can get. I think she had mentioned that, the voice was not clear. That was earlier.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
Okay, teachers, the feedback link is in the chat for you. I'll also request our team to share the link with you in the Oxford Advantage and Oxford Inspire groups that we have, just in case you were not able to click here and go to the form and give feedback. You will always find, you will get the feedback form in your WhatsApp groups. Okay, teachers, thank you so much once again. Thanks, Shubha, for a really, really vibrant and wonderful session that you took us
My
through.
pleasure. My
Right,
pleasure. Thank you so much.
great. Okay, teachers, so enjoy your weekend. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Good night.